Faith, Texans know the significance of the last stand at the Alamo, and while the battle wasn't fought here, many are calling this President Trump's last stand in office. And right when he arrived, President Trump signing a plaque at the wall to commemorate 450 miles of constructed border wall. Sydney, Clara, flames erupting at the La Blanca Recycling Center just behind me, and what we're seeing right now is two sources of light that are left. That from the emergency vehicles over my left shoulder and over my right shoulder, whatever remains of the flames that were burning earlier today. I'm going to go ahead and step out of frame for you. Well, first on 4, Texas shattering records this week as more COVID cases are reported. In the last week, both Cameron and Hidalgo County seeing an increase in cases. With any drastic change, there's going to be a shock to the system. Some students requiring more time to adjust than others, and it's reflected in their grades. Some Texas school districts even seeing a failure rate jump to 25% in their district or worse. Nicole, 13 members of Congress visiting the Ursula Processing Center in McAllen today. We're standing right outside of it right now. They were led by House Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Schumer, along with his colleagues, say their job was to, quote, investigate, inspect, and evaluate conditions at the facility. A record number of people are leaving their jobs, leaving companies struggling to find workers. Michael George reports on this growing trend and how New Year, New Me is taking on a newer meaning. If your child suddenly had to change how they went to school almost overnight, how do you think they'd handle it? Would they struggle like so many are doing right now? Or would their performance actually improve? Millions around the country don't have to ask that question because they're living the answer. And while we hear about the hurdles students are facing with online classes, that isn't the case across the board. In this special report, we look at the unseen impact of virtual learning. More of the water around Beaumont is showing signs of recession. This highway behind me had a traffic jam on it lasting several hours, but that too seems to be clearing up as the day goes on. The governor is referring to House Bill 1387. It removes the cap for the number of school marshals on any campus. A school marshal is someone allowed to have a concealed carry at a school. And according to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, there are 4 qualifications you must meet. You have to be an employee of the school or college. You need a valid Texas license to carry, to pass a psychological exam, and to take the 80-hour school marshal course. But even if you complete all those steps and pass the test, there's still no guarantee of approval. Yeah, Faith, the Astros certainly have a lot to be thankful for. We've gone over the numbers before, so let's not get too bogged down, even though it's, 5 ALCS appearances in 5 years, 3 World Series appearances. We have 1 title, and they're working on their second one this go around. The Astros have a lot to be thankful for, but a little bit of bad news actually coming down the pike yesterday. Ace for the Astros, Lance McCullers Jr., is not going to be available for the series, so that's going to be a little bit of a blow to their run for another title. Faith, this is the classic fight homeowners know all too well. When there's a problem, one organization says it's not their responsibility, the other saying the exact same thing. In this particular instance, the 2 conflicting points are coming from the city and Rio Valley switching. Now, that's the railroad. That's because the Cortinas family property doesn't only back up against this low-lying area, it's also against these tracks. And they say this overgrowth and brush behind me is only the start of their problems. All right, well, you met with Valley officials yesterday, and a number of the hospitals right now here in the area are at capacity or worse. Can you actually lay out a plan for assistance, specifically in our region in South Texas? Up early on January 6th to a Christmas tree surrounded by gifts left by the 3 wise men and celebrate the holiday all over again. Not a bad idea. I guess you get the double dose of Christmas. I wonder if the nativity scene turns that into holy water, though. It just kind of converts it, I don't know how it works. Maybe it does.
Oh, the jokes today, man, are flowing. Huh?
I was just thinking, both my kids were lifeguards.
All right, should be good.
When Blake Moretto learned how bad damage was from Imelda,
Yeah, we're 4 foot off the ground. We can't make that.
he barely had time to react.
I was actually on my way to school Thursday afternoon. My buddy Chris calls me and said, hey, people in Texas need help.
He says he turned in his homework assignment in Louisiana and headed to the worst areas in Texas.
So we've been going through deep waters pretty much the past couple of days.
And has since seen homes and cars washed away.
We've seen several vehicles fully submerged, partially submerged. We had a Mercedes that was trying to go along behind us along about a 3-mile stretch and actually got flooded in the process.
While some are using brute strength as their rescue method.
Do you worry about stalling this truck? It's got a 10-inch lift and it's got some pretty big tires. Not too worried about it around here.
Others are relying on a bare-bones strategy.
High water rescue and getting people to higher land. We had to save the dog. It was on the front porch. Yes, sir.
How many people have you rescued?
How many people we rescued?
I rescued a lot of them.
Yeah.
About 30.
Gerard August is using his ATV, going door to door in his own neighborhood.
It's just like everybody around here, we family. Yes, sir.
This is one big family, this neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
A family waiting for the water to recede and get back on the right side of the tracks. In Nome, Texas, I'm Chris Jacobs reporting.
It is just a real technical sport, and it's just awesome. It's amazing, the movements and the things that you're able to do with your body that you'd never realize you can do after putting it through some strain.
Wise words from Jake Montalvo. He's the owner and founder of Harlingen Jiu-Jitsu Club. But that was a common theme with the people we spoke to about our next story. The ability to push yourself into uncharted territory conquers all. Veterans know that rule better than most. And while we've touched on the battles they fight overseas and after returning home, how they overcome is a different story. We look at the veterans who've turned to martial arts, not just to find a hobby, but to find peace.
All right, guys. Out for it. Let's go.
The bell rings, the sandals come off, you turn up the rock, and it's time to roll.
This martial art is a beautiful thing, because it helps everybody, and jiu-jitsu is for everyone.
Men and women, young and old, beginner to skilled. Anyone can walk through the doors at Harlingen Jiu-Jitsu Club and learn technique, fitness, and discipline.
It calms me down. It burns a lot of energy, and it helps me focus on things, and it keeps me in great shape, or better shape.
But for one group in particular,
I joined the Army in 1990. I was assigned at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
I deployed to Iraq in 2009, 2010.
those lessons mean something more.
You come here and you start training, you start rolling, and it just kind of put it in the back of your mind and forget it.
Transitioning from military to civilian life can present its own challenges, whether that be physical, mental, or otherwise. Some even say it can be a lifelong journey, and some veterans will turn to a martial arts studio like this one to make that process a little bit easier.
I was in a bad place. I was going through a divorce. I was going through separation with my ex-wife.
Veteran Domingo Reyna knows the struggle of making that shift for more than one reason.
I came in, I was overweight, I was drinking a lot, I was dealing with a lot of anger issues, I hated life.
Adversity wasn't in short supply, but HJJC gave Reyna something he was missing.
These guys they brought me into a family, and it helped me focus on things, helped me better my life, helped me better myself.
Owner Jake Montalvo recognizes the impact from his gym and others like it.
Having like a lot of these guys that were former military or had served before come in and wanted to find like some sort of a outlet,
Kind of became like an addiction at the beginning, because like they mentioned, everybody was at the end of that line at one point, and you just want to advance.
Whether it's the discipline, the constant threat of defeat, or pure exhaustion.
You have to deal with what's in front of you at that moment. You can't put it off.
Most things learned in martial arts can be summed up in one lesson.
There's no I can't. And if there's an I can't, you will learn how to defeat that here, or just training jiu-jitsu in general.
No red lights, no stop signs, no speed limit, no road rage. All one-way streets.
Rembrandt had a white canvas, Mozart had blank sheet music, but pilots
I'm always grinning when I'm flying.
have the open skies.
The ultimate freedom, you get that same feeling you have. You're 16 years old, you get your driver's license, you get to go take the car out for the first time. It's like that, but on a factor of 1,000, time on steroids.
Smoke trails paint the clouds, creating their own masterpiece.
Doing a loop, barrel rolls 6 and 8 foot off someone's wing, that just steps it up to a whole new level.
If the gene for art runs in the blood,
My dad used to fly this airplane. He was with the CAF in the 70s and 80s in the very beginning.
My dad was an avid aviation enthusiast.
If you don't have a parent or a grandparent or an aunt and uncle, someone that's into it, you feel kind of intimidated.
Then so does the love of flight.
My father and I, since I was a little boy, literally 8 or 9 years old, would always go to air shows.
That legacy landing at the Cameron County Airport with the purpose of entertainment and a learning experience.
It's designed to be educational and inspirational to the youngsters, and maybe, just maybe, give them a little bit of a history lesson as well.
For these pilots, the sky is never the limit, but a playground.
I tell you what, if it gets complacent, then I'm quitting.
And a way to push the limits a little bit further.